We welcome in Robert Freeman. He is the Committee on Open Government, the Executive Director of the Committee on Open Government, and I'm sure I butchered his title there. Good morning, Mr. Freeman. How are you?
Good morning. How are you? I should mention to you that we have a store in our town just outside of Albany which sells a variety of Utica products, the Utica pie, the red pepper, and we love it all.
Really?
Oh, that's good to know. Is that Casa Imports?
No. It's called Delmar Marketplace, and Delmar is a suburb just south of Albany.
Sure.
And for whatever the reason, they look far and wide to find unusual products.
Well, I'm telling you, I would encourage you to try it because a lot of the food that comes from Utica, you can say a lot of things maybe about the area and be critical. The food is about as good as you can find in New York State.
I don't disagree.
So, you don't need a FOIL request to prove it either.
You don't need you might need some foil to keep it, to keep it in your refrigerator so that it stays fresh. But that's the extent of the use of foil in regard to your food, right?
Absolutely. So the reason we wanted to have you come on today is because New York State is in the process of passing a number of bills, and I guess ultimately some of them will be challenged. But one of them I don't think has been acted on yet, and it's an idea that Governor Cuomo talked about. And I think for some of us in the media, it was kind of gave us pause, and I think really it should give everyone pause. It's this idea that mugshots, police reports, and maybe even arrest reports, and I want to separate this from the issue that we talked about last hour here on the show, but because there are some real serious offenses that can occur that we get press releases on, we get mugshots on, people accused of extremely serious crimes, and this idea that nobody gets to see, the public doesn't get to see or know of this information until at some point there becomes a conviction. So I was wondering what the laws in New York State were like now. Would they have to change the laws, and what's your take on such a proposal?
Well, the proposals would amend the state's Freedom of Information law to make disclosure of mugshots and booking records an unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. And that means that a government agency could choose to withhold those kinds of records, wouldn't have to. But just to give you some background, mugshots have been available by means of case law in New York for an awfully long time. And in my opinion, the case law is based upon common sense.
Right.
Anybody can walk into the courthouse and see so-and-so's face. Why should it be that the face will no longer be public? Now, for what it's worth, the real issue involves the reality that often mugshots are posted online. Now, your listeners may know that if a person is charged with a crime and the charge is later dismissed, the records relating to the event become sealed, including the mugshot. Today, the problem is that there are unscrupulous companies that post mugshots which stand in the way of people getting jobs. You go online, we Google all the time these days, and so-and-so the prospective employer will see so-and-so's face and say, he's been convicted of a crime, when that may not be so. And these private companies will say, well, we're not going to let this go anymore if you pay us money. So in a way, that is extortion. And in other jurisdictions, the lawmakers have gone after those private companies instead of changing the law regarding public access. More important, in my opinion, is the booking record. When FOIL was first passed in 1974, it specified that police blotters and booking records were public. The booking record, historically, is simply the record of the arrest made by the arresting agency. And I've had to say publicly 1,000 times, we don't have secret arrest in this country.
Right.
We have the right to know who has been arrested. That has always been so, and in my opinion, the approach that's been taken probably was not thought out as much as it should have been. The arrest is really critical to communities. We need to know who has been charged with a violation of the penal law, especially.
One of the first things that came to my mind was, I totally get it. Everybody's innocent until proven guilty. But, you talk about the drug mug shots, right? Or someone gets a DWI, or, they find these before and afters where somebody's 20 years old and they're not a drug user, and then they're 40 and they've been smoking meth for 15 years. And you'll see these things, as you talked about.
Or third-party websites I've even seen, not to cut you off, but
right.
third-party companies will try and sell their news apps and just have a random mugshot that may not even be associated with the correct crime. But I've seen that.
I think here's where it gets serious. let's just say you have a school teacher who is accused of doing something inappropriate with children. Doesn't the school community, the parents, the administrators, don't they deserve a right to know something like that? Or if someone's accused of, some level of assault or an even more violent crime?
You're making the case. I think that the public clearly has the right to know. There's a need to know about situations like that occur in our communities. We need to be vigilant. The world is not necessarily a safe place. I don't think it's a terrible place, but certainly, and I think of I have 5 grandchildren. And if there have been assaults or if there's danger within a community and there are arrests that have been made, certainly my kids should have the ability to know about that, even if so-and-so has not yet been convicted. And there's another element to this, too. The courts are not covered by the Freedom of Information law, but court records, generally speaking, are available. Mm-hmm. Anybody can walk into the courthouse and get whatever has been filed there, and that includes the materials that have been filed and are in possession of the court clerk even before a trial, before there's a conviction.
We're talking with Robert Freeman, Executive Director of the Committee on Open Government, and I want to ask you something else. Do you think this would apply to, for instance, if there's a situation, unfortunately we've had this in New York, where someone is in a standoff or gets in a situation where they kill a police officer, and basically police put out this all-points bulletin, right? That's basically a be on the lookout for so-and-so. He's accused of killing a cop or doing something really heinous. Would that go away as well, or are authorities allowed to pick and choose?
No. That would not go away. The law enforcement agencies would still have the ability to disclose what they need to disclose to carry out their duties effectively. And what you just described is not a situation where there has been an arrest, nor would there be a mugshot, at least not yet. Maybe so-and-so was convicted of a crime previously, and you want to put the mugshot out there so that the public, again, can participate, can assist the police department in attempting to find the bad guys. But again, the Freedom of Information law is permissive. It generally says that even when an agency may withhold certain records, it is not required to do so. So the law enforcement agency will always have the discretionary authority to disclose.
Are you urging state lawmakers not to pass this, or are you just kind of watching this unfold?
Well, those who have asked about it, I've expressed my point of view, and you as the news media, you tell the world, and I've said this many, many times. I've repeated a phrase offered by Judge Louis Brandeis 106 years ago: sunlight is the best disinfectant. And your news organization is not the first that I've spoken to about this issue. There have been editorials, and I think that that's really what we need to stop let's say, to get people to think about it a little bit more deeply.
All right. It's always great to talk to you. Appreciate your time and your knowledge, and we appreciate you giving us a few minutes here this morning.
The pleasure is always mine, and I'm looking forward to that Utica pie.
Yeah, try that Utica stuff, man. It's really good.
I've tried it. We like it.
All right, awesome. Robert Freeman, Committee on Open Government, and he's really the expert when it comes to public information and what really governments should be sharing publicly and what they have to, and maybe in other cases he can advise you on what they really don't have to. There is nobody, I don't think, in the state who knows more on the topic than he does. So we kind of wanted to pick his brain and see where he was at on this proposal from the governor to not release, or at least give authorities the ability to not release mugshots, arrest reports, and things like that.